All right, so just picking up where we left off in the last video, so we're going to answer two questions now. So the first question is what happens to our optimal portfolio? So right here, our optimal portfolio or payoff is right here, right? What happens to this if we change our risk aversion? So if we change our utility function, if we make it more or less curvy, where does our optimal portfolio change? Does it, does it go up here? Does it go down there? Where does it go? So that's one thing. And the other thing is we want to figure out, so these are the only two assets we have, but this is the payoff, this is the like synthetic asset we're going towards, or this is the payoff we're going towards. So how many of each asset should we own to get there? Okay. Let's answer question one first. So let's make ourselves more risk averse, more risk averse. So first of all, let's just put a point on this graph just somewhere like right around here, just to say, this is about where the optimal portfolio was. Okay, so that's the optimal portfolio if our alpha or our A, if our risk aversion is 1.4. So let's crank this up a little bit to like 1.7 or maybe even 2. All right, so our risk aversion is now at 2. So you can see from here, it's a lot more curvy, right? Okay, so now the question is, well, what is our optimal portfolio there? Okay, and how do we do that? Well, remember we move this, we change our slice here, right? So let's move our slice up and down. Let's move our slice up and down like this, right? All right, we're moving our slice. So let's look at it from above, okay? And now, this thing keeps moving on me. I'm having trouble here. All right, now when we intersect, all right, that looks about there. Okay, so now we're here, right? You can see how we moved away. So we were here when we were more neutral towards risk, when we weren't as worried about it. Now we are more worried about risk, and all of a sudden we're over here. What does that sound like, or what's happening there? Sure enough, so the most risk averse portfolio would be treating this bad state and the good state, saying I want the same payoff in every state. So the very risk averse would be something along this 45-degree line. So we're not quite there yet, but I think we'll probably get there. So let's go ahead and let's crank up our risk aversion a little bit. So let's go up to like maybe 4. Okay? All right, now let's do the same song and dance. Let's move this up, 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 up. Boom. Now you can see we're intersecting right about here. So it's just getting more and more close to exactly this 45-degree line. So we may as well go all the way up to 5, and let's see what our position is exactly. Well, that's about as close as we're going to get to right at a completely risk-averse portfolio and a person who wants exactly the same payoff in every state. Okay, so we cranked up the risk aversion a lot. What happens if we go down in risk aversion, right? So let's do something at about 1.2. So this person is very neutral towards risk. They're not very concerned about it. They're like, I'll be fine, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to move this down a lot, right? So go down. See, we're going to have to lower this, okay? Keep going down. All right, now we are intersecting about over here, right? So what does that mean? So that means in the good state, this person is getting a 4.5 payoff. In the bad state, they're getting about 0.5. So this person is okay, and their optimal scenario is getting a really high payoff in the good state and a really low payoff in the bad state. And they're okay with that, right? That's what it means to be risk neutral, because the expected value, right, is, okay, let's say half the time you get a half, right? And then the other half of the time you get 5.5. So what's your expected value? It's about 3, right? But when we intersected over here, your expected value was 2, right? So you're going to get 2 in this case, 2 in this case. So your expected value is much higher in this scenario but it's a lot more risky to get that higher expected value. So that's kind of the payoff that people are willing to pay, is they're expecting more money, but they're also taking on more risk to get there. Okay? So that's exactly, that's what's happening with risk aversion, right? It's literally this. So now let's do one more. Let's solve the other problem that we talked about, is to say, okay, here are two assets. We want to get here. How many of these should we buy or sell to get there, right? All right, so now the way we'll do it, let's see if this works out for us. So let's take A and B. Actually, I'm going to put us, there's a couple ways to do this. So I'm going to, basically what we want to do is we want to add and subtract a certain amount of these A and B, right? So let's go ahead and just do, let's do just A plus B. Let's see where that gets us. So there's H right there. And what we want to do is we want to move H over here. Okay, so one way we can do it, I'm going to just put a point on here, right? Let's see if I can get us a good spot for a point. Yeah, that's as good as any, I guess. Okay, so now when I drag this point around, what I want it to do is I want it to scale these two differently, right? So I want to do the X value of I, and then times A, plus the Y value of I times B. Let's see if that works for us. Okay, did I get it? That's J. Okay, so now I want to come up here, and remember I'm trying to hit that spot over there. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, we're getting closer, and we're getting, now we're off the board. Let's see if we can get it this way. Let's keep going. All right. Where are you, I? All right. We are about there, I'd say. Okay. So now what does I mean? So I means, okay, we want to sell 8.25 of A, and we want to buy 10.4 of B. Okay, so B was the stock and A was the cash under the pillow, right? So what that means is we want to get rid of $8.25, and that's basically just like putting out a loan for that, and then buying 10.24 units of stock, right? So what, and you see this difference here is $2. Why is that $2? Well, that's because that's the amount of money we started with. That was our initial wealth, right? So you're putting $2 of your dollars straight into the stock, and then you're funding the rest of the 8.25 by selling and by basically issuing a loan. And then you'll pay back those people in the future, but your expected value is higher. So this is a very levered situation. And that's true because this person is very risk neutral. So that being levered is natural for a risk neutral person, especially if there's no margins or spreads or anything. But yeah, so I think we've solved the two problems that we had. Actually, you know what? I'll do one more thing. So let's move this down. So, ideally, in a risk neutral, or in a scenario in which we really don't like risk, this person is probably only going to choose the bond, right? So you can see here, if I just do the bond or cash under the pillow, right? That's how we're getting this asset of 2-2, and that was the intersection point when we were very risk averse, right? So, if we're risk averse, then our optimal portfolio is just holding two of the bond, or just putting $2 under your pillow. But if you are risk neutral and you're okay with risk, you're going to get yourself very levered and loan out a bunch of money, or take out a loan is what I mean, and buy a bunch of stocks with it. So I think that's all for today. Thanks for checking it out.